Well, hello, welcome back to Hammer Away. It is Wednesday, it's 4 o'clock. I'm here, you're here. But however, as it's happened before, my guest isn't here yet, so we're going to see what happens. You can see right here, it's supposed to be with Chip Nuff, and that's all right. It's not here just yet. We'll get to it. Who is here, though, is a good friend of mine, and a good friend of Go Game Go, of Hammer Away, and I am talking about Blake. What's up? How's it going? He's muted. You're muted now. Hold on. Now you're not. Hold on. I got you. There you go. What's up?
What's happening?
What is happening? So I invited Blake to come in here because he's a big fan of Nuff's Enough. And he has always been singing their praises for a while now. And there you go. Put that right up by the camera so we can see what that is. There you go. So
let me get that.
What's up, Saboteur? How's it going? Saboteur is in the house. So what I started knowing and realizing a long while back is that, Blake, though much younger than myself, knows so much about so many bands that I really like. So he's, like I say, big Enough's Enough fan. I got my stuff out as well. So I'll show you what I have. I got their first album here on CD. I have their second album on CD, which I deep dove through these just recently. And I really enjoyed them. I enjoyed Strength more than I remember. Blake, what's the last time that happened to you when you listened to a record and you're like, oh yeah, that was.
I have yet to listen to like the other 7, 8, well, like 4 or 5 songs from that album.
Yeah.
It started like a year and a half, 2 years ago, and I stopped.
I gotcha. World is a Gutter is one of my all-time favorites off of Strength. That is a killer tune.
Let me check out the track listing for that.
Now, most of the time, if I remember correctly, as I was going through the some of the history and stuff, there's a lot of it that is produced by them. I mean, and then also it's either produced by them or it's has somebody else who's with them on the production. Well, here we go. Look at this.
Oh, well, get me out of here.
Chip. How's it going, brother?
Pretty good, guys. How are you?
Oh, great. You sound great. Everything looks good.
Doing good.
Good old StreamYard.
Yeah, right? This is my buddy Blake. I wanted to make sure I introduced you, and he got a chance to say hello.
This is going to be 3 years old this year. I'm still going to promote this.
Much appreciated. That's one of many records right there, my friend. I'm glad we got a chance to put that one out.
You get 3 discs and 40 songs. Hopefully there's more on the way. I'd imagine.
How can we fix the audio a little bit so I can hear you guys a little better?
Oh, I don't know. Can you hear me okay?
I can hear you, but just not great.
Oh, okay. Can you do you have your volume up on your phone all the way?
It's cranked.
It is it? Okay. All right. Let's see if I get a little closer. I don't know how yours is, Blake, but
can you hear me now?
Yeah, I can hear you.
There you go. All right. So let me move that just a skosh. All right. So here's what I usually do, Chip.
Yeah.
And Blake, let me know. Do you want me to do you want to step out for a minute, or do you want to hang tight?
I'll hang tight.
Okay. So here we go. I always have a lightning round when I start. And so I have some questions for a quick lightning round here. First of all, Chip, do you have a personal mantra or like a philosophy that you share with people on the like regularly, where like I'm always saying everything happens for a reason and everything happens when it should.
Yeah, mine is who cares who drives the bus? Let's get to the picnic.
Amen. That's great. That is fantastic. Straight to the point. Let's just get there and get it done. If you could share a tour stage with any artist, let's say, or band, past, present, and then maybe, or a certain era, who would it be?
Well, if we're going back to the 70s, I would say Queen. That was always a band I admired. Loved their earlier material. That was just a fabulous group. I seen Freddie Mercury 4 times with Queen.
Wow.
First time was back in 1974, by the way, at the Aragon Ballroom. The opening act was Kansas, and the middle band was Mahogany Rush and Frank Marino. Remember,
Dude.
Frank came out and played the Star Spangled Banner. Then Queen played the show, and they played all the stuff off the first couple albums, like, Keep Yourself Alive and Ogre Battle and Son and Daughter. And, it was a fabulous set. And afterwards, they came out and they were getting in the car, and Brian May waved to all of us. So it was about 20 people in the alleyway. And we were like, oh, wow, how cool is that? And then Freddie came out and gave us the peace sign and jumped in the car. We thought, well, it's nice. There was no meet and greets back then. It was kind of nice to see bands acknowledging their fans. And that left an indelible mark with me, that's for sure. And of course, I seen Queen after that again, where Bill Nelson's Red Noise opened for them.
No,
a fabulous band. Not a lot of people knew about Bill Nelson back then. They all came out with 3-piece suits on. The fans were kind of awestruck by their look. It looked like a bunch of gentlemen on stage. Didn't look like rock stars, but I thought it was classy and elegant. And that was another great show, by the way. And of course, Queen played a 2-hour set, and they played a couple nights in a row, by the way, sold out. So they've always been fantastic. And then I caught Queen again at the Chicago Stadium, and the opening act was Thin Lizzy, and Gary Moore was the guitar player in Thin Lizzy then. It was an incredible show, you guys. In fact, Thin Lizzy, they came, obviously, the band from Ireland, Phil and that, wonderful lead singer. And they had a hit song here on a radio station called WXRT. A guy named Norm Weiner was playing Boys Are Back in Town, which wasn't even supposed to be on the record, from what I hear. Management company forced the band to put that on the record. And it was a great move right there. That was a fabulous show. So, anytime I've seen Queen, I was blown away by not only their disposition and their character, but a great catalog of songs. And they played them all through the whole set. Bad Boy Leroy Brown was in the set. Now I'm Here, Stone Cold Crazy. They really mixed it up every time I went to see them. And of course, they played the other hits like Bohemian Rhapsody. But for the most part, when you get a chance to see Queen live in concert playing songs like It's Too Late, it's incredible. And no tapes, no sequences, no guys backstage, just 4 guys playing, and they were fabulous. If I was picking a band from the 80s to go out on tour with, I'd probably go with a band that came out in the 70s but got big in the 80s, and that was Cheap Trick. I've always admired their strut. Robin Zander, quintessential vocalist. Just played with them last week, as a matter of fact, at the Beatles Fest in Delray Beach, Florida. And that was a great show, and hung out with Rick the whole time. He's got a new vodka out now called Rockin' Vodka. He's been pushing that around the country. But that's a great band to go see live in concert as well. And then bands from the 90s, there's too many to mention. I love all the stuff that came out when we were out there.
Yeah.
Big fan of all the music that was big on MTV back in that day. And, you can pick and choose all the groups that I like to play with. And I play with a lot of them already. So I think I was able to attain that bucket list.
I'm flipping out. I'm flipping out that you saw Bill Nelson's Red Noise. That's killing me.
Yeah, I was a big fan of Bebop Deluxe in the early days. Not a lot of people know about that band, but they had a wonderful sense of balance. You see them live in concert. And that was another band that had great songs. It was a little bit underground, but that's what made them so special. And obviously Queen's seen something in them too to put them on that tour. And I remember meeting Bill Nelson. He told me he lost their asses on that tour, and that's understandable because almost every tour I do when I go over to Europe, I just did Skid Row a year ago over in the UK, and both bands lost their asses. It's hard to tour right now. It's very expensive for transportation. Flights are ridiculous. Hotel rooms it gives you an ass whipping. And Live Nation at the time, they just changed their policy, but for years they were taking 25-30% of the band's merchandise every single night. And this is records and CDs and T-shirts that the band pays for themselves, and then we bring them to the venue, and it costs us 30% just to sell them there. So it's very challenging to navigate those waters, but we're finding new ways now to get out there and play shows, because now with social media, the record stores aren't as prevalent as they were back in the old days, but you can sell your product at the shows. And I think that with iTunes and Apple Play and Deezer and Spotify, at least people get a chance to hear your music. And at the end of the day, that's the most important thing.
Absolutely. Absolutely. We'll have to chat about that again, because that red noise thing flips me out. I don't know. I don't talk red noise with a lot of people, but I have highlighted it on this show because I've got it on vinyl. I just purchased it again. For our next question, who are some of your favorite fellow bassists that you've met?
Well, too many to mention. I got great stories, by the way. A lot of bass players I got a chance to hang out with. John Entwistle, I hung out with him at the Rainbow years ago. And I remember he was sitting at a table with the Nelson brothers. Mm-hmm. And I thought that was interesting. And Gunnar Nelson says to me, "Hey, Chip, I want you to meet John Entwistle." And he goes, "John, this is Chip from Enough Snuff." And John looked up at me and just nodded his head as he was counting $100 bills. He had about $10,000 in his hand. He was just counting money. That's it. I thought that was kind of interesting. Maybe he was getting ready to purchase something. Who knows? We're at the Rainbow. It's 1:00 in the morning. But they invited me to. They were going to. I think it was a porn shoot. And they said, "Hey, you want to come with us?" And I really wanted to go, but I said, maybe it's my best interest to not stay out much later, because I had a show the next day at the Whiskey A Go-Go. But Entwistle, what a great bass player. I've always loved his tone. Just a ferocious player. Another guy that I really love a lot was Geddy Lee. I could tell you stories about him, but I'd rather not, because I don't want to get in any trouble. But wonderful bass player and a great singer as well. I seen them cats play in the bars. When John Rutsey left Rush, Neil Peart joined the band, and they played Beginnings in Schaumburg here in Illinois. And I went to the show. I was maybe 14 years old, and I was able to sneak in there with a fake ID. And I watched them play Caress of Steel in its entirety. It was incredible. Okay.
Wow.
It's very, very rare to see bands like that in those early days. And it was like $5-6 to get in for a show. By the way, the Queen shows I went to go see, it was $4.50 to get in to go see Queen. And concert tickets nowadays have went up exponentially. It's, a couple $100 with parking, with food, to buy merchandise for every single show. So I guess I'm one of the lucky guys to get a chance to experience and see these shows with these great rock bands, and for a pittance of what it would cost nowadays. By the way, I'm a big fan of John Deacon from Queen. I think he was an underrated bass player, great songwriter as well. Wrote some of the biggest hits in Queen. People don't realize that he's worth hundreds of millions of dollars right now, and he's laughing all the way to the bank, retired. And there's there's other bass players too that I really admire, like Paul McCartney, fabulous. John Paul Jones, just incredible bass player. But there's other cats that aren't in the rock field that I think were great bass players as well. Most notably Stanley Clark. I used to see Stanley play, and he played small places here in Chicago, like the old Park West, and just tore the house down. Just a fabulous bass player, and even a nicer guy off the stage too. So I could sit here all day probably if I looked at all my favorite bass players. There's plenty of more I haven't mentioned, but those are some great guys right there that have really left an indelible mark with my musical knowledge.
Oh yeah, absolutely. What's the most Spinal Tap style moment in your career, or that of Enough's Enough?
I'm sure there's plenty of them. Our very first tour we did was with a band called Badlands. It was Nuff, Snuff, and Badlands. It was Jake Healy, Ray Gillen, Craig Chasen, and the drummer from Kiss,
Eric. Yeah.
And I've always loved Eric Singer's playing. He's a great singer too, as well. And my mother gave me some tetracycline and some erythromycin in case anybody caught the clap on the road. She didn't say that she was here. This is some medicine in case anybody gets sick, but we know what it was for. And those guys were eating pills like chiclets on the whole tour. Okay, I had to go through a couple of bottles. I don't know why if anybody caught the clap or anything, but I certainly do know that those pills came in very handy on that tour, and that was every single day. And we found ourselves on that run. We knew Thing was a big smash hit on MTV at the time, and of course the Badlands coming from Jake Healy and Ozzy Osbourne, they had certainly a big name as well, and they were the headliners. But every single show was completely sold out. The fans were just really flocking to the bands because MTV and radio were playing that music, where nowadays we don't have MTV, and radio is not as reflective as it was back in these old days, where they were embracing hard rock and heavy metal. So, I got a chance right at the cusp of when everything changed, because when Soundgarden, Pearl Jam, Nirvana, Alice in Chains came in, a lot of those bands took an ass whooping for a while. We had to take a little bit of a break, but I was able to withstand the punishment throughout those years. And there's a reason why. You just don't stop. Luck is the resin of design.
Right. We all right. So we did talk about that the other day. We just were chatting a little bit about like bands like Sparks, where they do what they got to do keep moving, and they just keep writing, keep recording.
Well, Sparks that's one of my favorite bands. I love them all, brothers. I think they're fabulous songwriters, and they were able to navigate these musical waters because they took their music and they found ways to get it out, music, soundtracks and TV shows and movies and etc., where they were able to license their music and get it out there where people can hear it. And that's how they made their living, where they didn't have to tour like a band like Nuff Snuff, or we have to go out and play 100 and something shows a year. Right. And they were smart. They got good people that are behind them. And when they go out on tour, they play theaters and small arenas, and they do really well. And that's a great band. And I think way ahead of their time, to be honest with you. That stuff is very, when you listen to it, it's very challenging playing those songs. And boy, they're very memorable too. Great players, just a fabulous band.
I think every bit of that description, everything you threw out there is just, it's dead on for those guys. They're eclectic, they're talented, they're with it. It's not half-hearted. Everything they do is new and different, and they're with it every time. And that, that's what you have to do too, right? Staying honest the whole time.
Well, it's really important for all bands to keep things fresh and moving forward. And we go out, we put records out. I think we have 20 albums out now, right? So it's quite a nice collection of material. We have a great catalog. At least I believe that, without sounding modest. And it's nice to keep it fresh. And although you come out and see a Nuff Snuff show, we play stuff from the earlier records because those were the hits and the people want to hear those songs. I think we mix it up pretty well. We don't play a lot of stuff off the new records because there's just not a time. We're out there, we're supporting bands. We're on tour with, Skid Row, or maybe the Dead Daisies, or perhaps Great White, or Glenn Hughes from Deep Purple. We're playing 45-hour sets, so we can only have so much time to play. But on the shows that we go out, we play an hour and a half, 2-hour sets. We really mix it up well. We have a plethora of material out there, and that's it's really challenging for us. But that's what makes it exciting, and the fans love it too as well. As a matter of fact, we just finished up a live record. We're going to be putting out this year, and it's live at the Whiskey A Go-Go. We've never done that before. So that's going to be nice. We can showcase music from the first album all the way through to our 20th record. A lot of material on that we did at that show. And then we have a studio record that's going to be coming out sometime this year as well. So nobody can call us lazy, that's for sure. We're constantly putting music out there, and that's what it's all about. And my friends are doing the same thing. I see all my colleagues, they're all, when they get off tour, they go right in the studio and they start recording new material, because that's what moves your trajectory forward.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
That was one of my questions. And
go ahead.
Deleting that. So give me a minute here.
Oh, okay. So my last lightning round question, and bear with me because this one has a little intro. So in a strange dream, you find yourself standing before a menagerie of animal avatars. Then comes the sorceress, and she says to choose from these creatures a base that she will make that has the spirit of that animal, of your favorite animal. What kind of spirit animal do you want in that base?
Maybe a zebra. I like the stripes on it. It's a beautiful animal, and it's fast. And it shows. It's got a lot of beautiful colors to it. And it's an animal that's friendly. Okay, so I'll take the zebra off the top of my head right now. I think that's a pretty easy answer, to be honest with you.
It's a great choice. It's a great choice because let's face it, that they're the things that know how to fight to stay alive, right? And
well, there's plenty of them out there, and they're beautiful. And it's an animal that's you can embrace those kind of animals because they're not really aggressive. They're just out there and just want to live their life and eat off the fruits of what God's left on this country. So I think it's a pretty simple answer. Maybe it's not the best one.
no.
I could have picked a tiger or a lion or a polar bear too, but I'm going to go with something that seems to fit with how I live.
Absolutely. I think that's a great choice. I would be the guy that does the tiger thing. That would be me. But I love the zebra, and for the reasons, that's for sure. Well, we'll get, I wanted to talk about this a little bit too. There's some interesting things in today's news that I thought normally I wouldn't do this in an interview, but it fits us. So it was in 2007 that we lost John Wetton. Were you uber familiar with his catalog of things that he did over the years?
Oh, absolutely. I loved him in his solo stuff. I thought it was great. And King Crimson, I mean, let's face it, he's a fabulous singer bass player. But when he went off and put his other band together, they had a lot of smash hit songs. He's a great songwriter, a very underrated cat. A simple bass player, solid as a rock, but beautiful pipes. He has his own timbre, and
Yes.
And people went out when you see those shows when they first came out with that record, and solo stuff. His other band. They sold out every single show they went to. But then radio changed and he wasn't getting a lot of airplay. And I think that really hurt him a little bit because for years and years, they did so well as a musical group. And then radio changed exponentially and they found themselves behind the eight ball. And I think that took a lot of wind out of their sails. But Wetton, yeah, fabulous bass player, underrated beyond belief.
Absolutely. That's exactly the way I feel about it. It's amazing all the bands that he was in. Starting with Mogul Thrash, there was a few before that, but and all the way with Family and like Uriah Heep. That's when I really got into him.
Well, I loved Gary Thane from Uriah Heep. I thought he was a great bass player, and it does a weird band because if you played bass in that band, you had the propensity to get in trouble at any single moment. Usually, it was electrocution, because certainly those guys didn't have it together for some reason, and those a lot of things that happen in that band behind closed doors that no one really talks about, but it's a great band. I love Mick Box too. Listen, that was a band that they came out and they took over American radio with tons of smash hits, and then they just took a break. And I get it because this is not an easy business to navigate.
Yeah. I remember seeing Uriah Heep when they were on their Head First tour, the album after Abominog, but then they had Head First and they covered Bryan Adams on that album, and then I saw them open for Def Leppard. It was Uriah Heep, Quiet Riot, and Def Leppard.
Yeah, I've seen that tour as well.
Yeah, and I could afford to buy all the T-shirts. It wasn't that expensive.
No, to get into a concert, I went to that show. It was $7.50 to get in there, and then a T-shirt you can get for $20.
Yep.
No, I went to a Judas Priest show recently. It was $75 for a T-shirt. It's incredible. A hoodie at an Aerosmith show is $150. It's unbelievable. Come to an Enough's Enough show. You know, get your shirts for $40 for a shirt or a hoodie. You can buy vinyl there at the show. Same thing. CDs, $20. We sign everything. That's the way to go, because when you go to a record store, you're not going to get any of those autographs. That's for sure. And you're not going to get a chance to get a picture with the artist. So there's some pros and cons to selling your product over at the live shows. And back then you couldn't do that. You can get a T-shirt. Nowadays you can buy vinyl and you can buy CDs and everything else at those gigs, and that's something that really leaves an indelible mark.
Absolutely. Did you have a question there real quick there?
Oh,
Blake,
yeah.
Did you have a question?
I have 5 questions. So I will start with number 1.
Okay, go ahead.
How did you meet Donnie V, Derek Frigo, and Dickie Fox?
Here in the South Side of Chicago, Donnie and I put together the band Enough's Enough back in late '83, early '84 on the South Side of Chicago. Donnie, fabulous pipes, great songwriter, and he was talented back then because when he was a kid, he was just listening to Beatle records and learning how to sing from that. And so that's hence the timbre that he has, which is Lennon and McCartney both. He sounds a little like Glenn Tilbrook from Squeeze as well, a little like Costello. He's a man of a bunch of voices, and that was really special. And then Fox, I met through a friend of mine, and he was his cousin, a guy named Jeff Pichal, used to be a crew member of Enough's Enough, and he turned me on to Vic. Vic was playing in a band in the South Side of Chicago called Lickety Split. And he came over to my house. He brought a cassette tape with him, and I listened to a couple of songs. I go, "Is this you playing?" He goes, "Yeah." I go, "All right, you got the gig." Never even auditioned for the band. Never seen him play or anything. Just heard it from his demo tape. And then at the end, getting Frigo, I had Alex Kane from Life, Sex, and Death. Before he was in Life, Sex, and Death, he was playing with Enough's Enough. After we recorded our demos, he split to go put together Life, Sex, and Death. And management company, Bob Brigham, came to me and said, "I got a guy, his name's Derek Frigo. He's from a band called Le Mans. I think he'd be a perfect fit." I go, "I hear about him. He's great, but he might be a little bit too much trouble. I can't babysit him." They go, "Don't worry, we'll watch him. Let's just bring him on down and see how he sounds." And so we came down to a place called the Royal Recorders in Lake Geneva, Wisconsin, and we had the demos already recorded. He just came in and played some rhythms and some guitar solos on 4 or 5 songs. And before that, we shopped the demos to record companies, and nobody bid on anything. Couldn't get a bite from any labels. And as soon as Derek played on those demos, we sent them same demos out to all the labels, and we had a bidding war within 2 weeks because his guitar playing was incendiary. And people just loved that pop and the rock. The mixture was a nice marriage between both. And we eventually met Doc McGee down at Royal Recorders. He came down because Skid Row was doing their record. And Doc says, "Yeah, I got 3 cassette tapes in my car, Chip. 2 of them are Enough's Enough." I said, "Oh man, it's very cool. It's great." He goes, "Yeah, I got a friend of mine out in New York. He signed Cinderella and Bon Jovi. His name is Derek Showman. He used to be a singer from a band called Gentle Giant. He's got his own imprint right now, and he's looking for bands. And I think he'd be interested in you guys." So he gave him the tape, and then Derek heard it, loved the band, flew to Chicago, watched us play at this rehearsal spot called Dress Rehearsal with my friends Don and Monica Graylis. And it was a debacle. Okay, people were hanging out in the studio and smoking cigarettes and drinking booze and smoking dope, and it was real loosey goosey. And we played 2 songs for him. And after the second song, Donnie said, "Yeah, I think you've heard enough, haven't you?" And Derek Showman said, "Yeah, I certainly have." And then we talked for a few minutes. And that was it. And the next day, they sent us a facsimile for a record deal, $250,000 to go record the new Enough's Enough album. And at that time, we were broke. I worked at U.S. Steel with my father, and Donnie had a job as construction. He was really good. He could build anything. And we were able to quit our jobs and focus our attention on making a great record.
Wow.
I was gonna say the booze part sounds pretty good, but the dope part don't. The drinking part I can understand, but the first 2 things, recording and the party, I can deal with that.
Well, I think that comes with the territory. It's a rock band at the end of the day, and it was funny at that place in dress rehearsal. Smashing Pumpkins would be rehearsing in there, and Veruca Salt, and you had all the up and coming bands that were all rehearsing there, paying $10 an hour to play. It was all the gear was already there, and we just plug in and play. Real Sesame Street, and really a lot of fun in those early days when there was no rules or regulations.
Tell me about now. You've worked through these years. You've worked through a lot of different labels, and right now, are you working with a specific label at this point for this new couple of releases?
Well, we just did a deal with Cleopatra Records for the very first Nuff Snuff album, but in demo form, just
Okay.
the demos of the very first record. And so it's Fly High, a new thing, and Little Indian Angel, and For Now. All those songs are on the record, and we put a couple bonus tracks on there as well. We did a version of Manic Depression by Jimi Hendrix that's on there as a bonus track, along with another song called Runaway. And that comes out sometime here in 2024. But right now, all our stuff has been the last 7 years. We've put records out with Frontiers Records, guy named Sarfini, him and his A&R guy named Mario. We've put out Clown's Lounge and Perfectly Imperfect, along with Diamond Boy, Brainwashed Generation, and the latest record we just released in November of last year, and that's called Finer Than Sin. So we've done a lot of records where we have a unique position. We're with two labels. The newer stuff has been with Frontiers, and the catalog stuff has been with Cleopatra. And it's a nice relationship. We're happy to put the records out there and let people hear all the stuff that we've recorded, which is I think we have almost 300 songs on Spotify. So it's a lot of material. It's almost overwhelming, but we own all our songs, which is great. And maybe one day we can find someone else to re-record some of these songs, or perhaps maybe do something with our catalog, where it's in our best interest. But I'm happy after all these years to be able to say that we own all of our songs.
Yeah. See here if I can think about so with some of the changes, what are some of the struggles that you guys go through when you're dealing with the next record company? Because I know I have some things that were released when you guys were on Spitfire. You did paraphernalia on that. And what are the struggles between going through all of that?
I remember when we put that paraphernalia record out through Spitfire, and one of the guys from one of the big magazines, a guy named Mark Blackwell, did a review on the records saying how brilliant the songs were, and that we were able to get Billy Corrigan and Rick Nielsen from Cheap Trick and Jay White from Styx to play on the record to help elevate our perception. That's why we did it. And plus we wanted to play with our colleagues too, guys from the South Side of Chicago that made great records and were good musicians. And Mark Blackwell said, as great as Nuff Snuff is and as fabulous as their songs are, will it be enough to lift the black cloud that follows this fucking band? I thought, boy, this guy knows us really well. There's a lot of variables out there. In the old days, record companies would give you a couple $100,000 to make a record, and then they would do a vigorous retail and marketing campaign to help awareness on the albums. Nowadays, it's much harder. Records cost $20,000-$30,000 to make. It doesn't cost $200,000 to make, but the budgets are much smaller. So the challenge is making the record without compromising the integrity of the music and the sounds. And then last but not least, to find a tour. We have a great agency. We're with artists worldwide over in Los Angeles. And Chuck and Greg, our agents, those guys are fabulous. They get us a lot of work. And that's how we navigate and go out there, and we make the records, and we go out and play the shows. And hopefully we can stay in the red. Or stay in the black, I should say, but we're always in the red. I gotta be honest with you. It's it's a Freudian slip right there. We always find ourselves going out there. Yeah, we're gonna make money on these tours, and we never do. Sometimes we just break even, but we can reach the audience, let people know that we're alive. You don't know who's gonna be out in the crowd. It could be a movie producer, some kind of guy out there that's doing something that says, hey, you know what? You guys would be perfect for my next project. And that's what we do. Every show means tons. Everybody's taping the stuff. There's really no room for error. There's a lot of pressure every single night for all the bands out there. And I just wish them well that they can go out there and play these shows and try to limit the hiccups that we experience.
Yeah. Do you think a lot of this, okay, so we have the whole thing going on with the music industry, right? And the thing that I mentioned to a lot of artists that I interview and things is I always talk about maybe we musicians and people who write music should become more of the industry of music. However, in saying that, I don't tour like you do. I play local. And is there a situation where you, as you mentioned earlier, with the clubs wanting to take a cut of your merch and whatnot, just to sell your stuff there, they want 30%. You think that's the next step, whereas the music industry has backed out a little bit, and now this is the next struggle that we come up against when you're out there doing that?
Well, Live Nation just reported a couple months ago that they're no longer going to take a cut of merchandise sales, which that's a miracle in itself. That's great. Obviously, somebody's looking out for the bands because it's just too much to be able to take that much of a percentage of stuff that they had nothing to do with whatsoever. They should be more focused on filling the seats and getting an audience in there and promoting the shows that way. That's one thing that's great for us. I think that you're not going to change the rules and regulations when it comes to getting tour buses and sprinters, because you have to have a driver, you have to have fuel, you have to get hotel rooms. There's going to be a struggle no matter what, and gas prices are up exponentially. So, and then plus for flights to fly just from Chicago to England to do a tour, it's $750 per guy for the flights. So there's going to be a challenge no matter what you do. Your best bet is just to go out there and find a way to make it work. And that's what we do as a band. All the bands have the same problem. Imagine the big bands that are out there on tour right now. It's much more challenging for them because they have a much bigger nut than we do. We can go out and tour. Backline can be provided, get an opening act to lend the gear, and we share that, which makes it a little simpler for not only for production, but for all of us moving around as far as the crew goes and band. But at the end of the day, you're going to still find yourself trying to get behind the 8 ball. And listen, I don't care who you are, how big your band is, those expenses are going to outweigh some of the profits that you're going to make. So it's a labor of love at the end of the day, gentlemen, for all the bands.
Yeah. Blake, did you have another question you want to ask him?
Yeah, but before that, I was coming home from work the other day, and gas by my house is $2.99.
Mm-hmm.
A quick trip, $2.99.
Yeah, it's worse up in Chicago. I know that.
Yeah, it's not $2.99 here, and then you go to Los Angeles, it's $5 for sure, guys. I just toured there. Anywhere you go, it's going to be between $3.50 and $4 a gallon. Yeah. And they say it's going down a little bit, but it's not. Until we fix what's broken right now, we're going to still find ourselves trying to get the best deals we can. But there's only so much you can do. Imagine what fuel is for the airplanes around the country. Okay, all that diesel, gasoline, it costs tons. It's much more expensive. There's nothing you can do about that, guys. Here, the most important thing is stay focused, look at your numbers, and then just try to navigate that way without hurting yourself or your team. And there's next tours that we have coming up here. We're out with Glenn Hughes coming up next week. It starts next Wednesday, and it's Glenn Hughes doing the Deep Purple Burn Tour, 50 years in the game. There's a guy right there who's been able to withstand the punishment in the music business. Yeah. And then along with Glenn Hughes, it'll be Bad Marriage, which is Tommy Skeel from Tesla's new band. And those guys are fabulous too. They bring a real good rock show with them. So I think that the future is strength in numbers and consolidation. That's what the guys at Live Nation tell me. So get 2, 3, 4 bands together, and that helps get a lot of people into those shows. And if you look at the tours that are happening this year right now, you got the stadium tour with Journey and Def Leppard, and they're taking out Steve Miller Band, and some of the dates are with Cheap Trick. A few of them are with Heart. And then Heart's going on tour this year. They're out with Cheap Trick and Squeeze. And, you get 3, 4 bands together, and it's going to cause some demand. And that's the wave of the future, consolidation.
Yeah. Yeah. I was really, really happy to see that Bad Marriage is on this show with you guys over here. Because I guess if you're starting next Wednesday, a week from today, that's the first show that's over here in Illinois, just across the river. And Bad Marriage is a band that I picked one of their songs, something I heard on Spotify. I'm like, I love this band. We could play this song, and I put it on my song list. So,
Yeah, those guys show up there. They're ready to go every single day. Those are real rock stars. I met every single show. They are ready to go. They push the extracurricular activities behind. Although the guitar player in that band's got a propensity to get in trouble at any single moment. A real troublemaker, and I love him for that. Okay, his name is Fitzy, and he's a solid guitarist and great songwriter. And they come out every single night, and they're on fire. Okay, they want to blow everybody away, and sometimes they do. They got a great rock show. It's a rock solid band. And the first show is at the Whitley Theater, and that's in Edwardsville, Illinois, which is right outside of St. Louis. And and then from there we just work our way around the country until we start up on. In March on the Monsters of Rock cruise, and that's going to be incredible with the Darkness and Extreme and Faster Pussycat and KK Priest. He'll be bringing his band KK Downing, and Joe Satriani's on there. That's going to be that might be one of the greatest cruises I've ever played on. Larry Moran puts it together every single year. The guy's fabulous. Used to work with all kinds of bands, Cinderella and Poison. Really one of those real astute guys who puts his balls on the chopping block every single night and puts the best bands together. And it's 35 drunken, salty dogs on a boat for 5 days going to Jamaica and Dominican Republic. And it's a real party, Bahamas. And that's a celebration of rock right there, folks. And then from there, we have to get off the boat on the 7th. We're with Glenn Hughes on that as well. And we go right to England. We start off on March 8th. The next day, we're playing Hard Rock Hell with Quiet Riot.
wow.
In a band called Zach Waters Band, which is a Roger Waters' illegitimate kid.
Wow. That's crazy.
Sounds like some wannabe tribute band to me.
Wannabe tribute band.
That's what it sounds like to me. All right, I got another question here for Chip here. What years did the Never Enough demos happen?
The Never Enough demos happened from 1980, late 83, 84, 85. So it was on and off. We recorded 60, 70 songs in those 2 years. That we had more songs, but we recorded those at that time. The first part of it was at Grandma and Grandma McNulty's basement, which is my buddy's grandparents' house, and they let us rent it out, and we recorded like 15 songs there. And then from there we went over and did a bunch of stuff over at where was it? Prairie Street, 2231 Prairie. That was my old house that I lived in, an old apartment where it had no electricity. We had to run a extension cord out to the hallways and plug it into the light socket. And then at 10 o'clock in the morning, the electric would go on and we'd start playing. We had no telephone there. Donnie climbed up a tree and got a telephone pole and hooked up a telephone line for us. So we had a phone to work there. We had no refrigerator, so everything was in a box with ice cubes. And we recorded all those songs right there, and that got everybody real excited because management company heard them and they were blown away. And that got us over to Lake Geneva, Wisconsin. But before we went to Lake Geneva, Wisconsin, I went to a place called Longwood Towers. That's where I was living in Beverly Hills, Chicago. And we recorded a lot of those demos over there as well. And we probably recorded 100 songs there, but only a dozen of them made it onto that record. I wanted to pick the best sound and stuff that was on there because a lot of that material was just Donnie and myself. I was playing drums, I was playing bass, I was playing lead guitar. Donnie was doing the singing, he was playing rhythm guitar, playing piano. So we were really mixing it up right there. And then we found our footing and we were able to get Fox and Frigo into the band, and they started doing the demos with us after that.
Wow.
I was talking about that with the Viking the other day, and I said it's amazing that Donnie didn't get electrocuted doing that.
Yeah, he's a pretty smart guy. He knows how to fix stuff. He's really good at that. He's like James Bond. The guy that just knew how to navigate those kind of waters for us back then, and we needed that. It was really important to get those demos out of the way because we had no money whatsoever at the time. We were broke. We were doing construction jobs just to stay alive. It was really a lot of fun. It was sometimes I got to be honest with you. Most people know, most successful people know that the chase is really what's important. Okay, to get out there and put your best foot forward and don't give up, and you'll have a chance then. And that's what we did. We just kept moving forward with no finances behind us, and with the talent and the dreams that we had in our head, we were able to put pen to paper and of course music to tape, and we were able to reach a bigger audience.
Yeah. Just to go through, what are some of the strong points between? I mean, if you've got records all the way through. I mean, we've got starting with 89, 91, 93, 94, 5. 6, 7, 9, 2003, 4, 9, 16, 18, 20, 21, 22. What are the things that are happening with the band between where there's member changes? Are there certain times that you remember between certain albums where you were, I don't know, whatever, like, were there really down points? Were there real up points where you're like, this is what we need right now?
Well, the down points for sure were the music business changing and finding an audience and people that want to hear the songs and hear the music. And that was always challenging. And what brought it up for us and gave us a spark was going to be able to go in the studio and record new songs, because with new songs brings new life and new opportunities. Yeah. So, you just mentioned all those years of records, but for us, if we weren't in the studio recording, we were finding work, going out there and playing shows and opening for big bands, and then playing shows on our own too as well. So there was all kinds of different opportunities that were happening back then. Some good and some bad. I don't want to focus on the negative.
Right.
Because we've always had a propensity to get in trouble at any single moment when it came to substance abuse or promiscuity, but we've all grown up throughout the years. And we focus on the songs. And if you look at what's happening through the world right now, there's plenty of fodder out there to write about. And that's most of these songs are about everyday experiences that we went through, and perhaps the audience has as well. And right. It's exciting for me to be able to come up with new songs about new things that are happening, and maybe some solutions, and maybe some things that what to do and what not to do at the end of the day. But making those records in the studio, that's pretty exciting for us, because you're in there, there's no audience at all. You're just playing these songs that you've come up with, and you're trying to come up with something that's going to be new and fresh and not obsolete. And that's the biggest challenge right there, because most of my songwriter friends, they all tell me their biggest fear is running out of material. But if you read and you watch what's happening in the world, they'll give you plenty of stuff to write about.
Right. Now, did you find that throughout that time, like especially with the first album hitting in 89, I mean, we're heading right into the 90s where we still continue to talk about the grunge thing, but did you find that some of the bands that were out and maybe really going stellar, were they having an issue? Did you observe any other issues with people? Because let's face it, when you're young and hungry and skinny and trying to get these gigs and trying to sell records, then all of a sudden you're rich and you got all this money. And did you ever see any of that where people are struggling to, what do you write about now?
No, I haven't seen that. Remember when that whole change of the guard happened with the Seattle scene, all those bands, most of us guys from from my era, they embraced that. We loved Soundgarden. We thought Alice in Chains was Jerry Cantrell, fabulous songwriter and wonderful band. Pearl Jam, that first record 10, it's a classic right there. Not a bad song on any of those records right there. That whole Seattle, Nirvana, can't say enough about them. I remember catching them at the Aragon Ballroom, their last show here in Chicago. A friend of mine gave me passes for it, and I went to the gig. and they were fighting on stage and arguing on stage, the guys, and that was just and that made the show even more exciting as far as I'm concerned. That first Nevermind record, that you can't say enough great things about that. Butch Vig produced that record, did a wonderful job, and Dave Grohl, solid drummer beyond belief. That was a great band. So, a lot of those bands that came out during that era, we embraced. Unfortunately, MTV had a meeting behind closed doors, and they said we're going to come up with another style of music, and we're going to pretty much slam the door on the bands that helped us network flourish through the years. And the new music was going to be grunge, and the rock bands that were out there, lo and behold, all of them, we're all going to take a beating for a little while. We had to withstand the punishment and try to find a way to stay relevant while those bands were reaping the benefits of what we started. And I think that a lot of the bands did. I mean, if you want to do this for a living every single day, like I said earlier, luck is the resin of design, and it's when preparation meets opportunity, and that's exactly what we all did, and that's why those bands were able to withstand the punishment of what was happening back in those days. And you see how music is right now. It's wide open for interpretation. Everybody's got a studio in their fucking house right now. They're all recording records, trying to save dough where you don't have to go to a regular studio. And the big studios are closing down. They just closed Chicago Recording Company here in the north side of Chicago. And that place has been going for 40 years, where Queen and Genesis and Pearl Jam and Michael Jackson, everybody recorded records. I was there. I hung out with those cats, And the game has changed now exponentially, and I think that the great bands that are out there find a way to make it happen and to be able to move forward, and that's what's most important for any of those bands out there, is just not to give up. And at the end of the day, when it's all said and done, you got your catalog to look at, and maybe there's somebody out there interested in that, but it's all about songs at the end of the day, guys. That's the common denominator. All the record companies, anybody in the business, they're all looking for the next great song. That's for sure.
Absolutely. Blake, did you have one more question there too?
Yes, I do. I know, Chip, that Derek Frigo died when I was 3 years old in 2004, and Ricky Parent died in 2007 from cancer. At what point did you think, because I know for a fact Donnie was heavily into drugs at that point, how long did you think, once he's gone, this band's done?
Well, when I put together Enough Snuff, I never envisioned the ending. You put it together, and you perhaps failure was not in our vocabulary. Maybe that just means we'll get it right the next time. But drugs, it's a finicky thing. It's drugs and alcohol are very tough, and they're prevalent in this business. And all the bands I've toured with, I could write a book about all the promiscuous behavior that was going on during those early moments. And we toured with everybody from Def Leppard to Cheap Trick, and just great bands. I mean, you look at one of our live records, I put all the bands on there that we've toured with around the country throughout the years, and there's 50 of them out there. The one common denominator was those guys knew that the run wouldn't last long if you didn't get off the stuff. And those early Enough Snuff tours, those are really tough, because we'd be traveling around. We'd be out with Poison, Quiet Riot, Warrant on big tours, and our bus would be dubbed the Yellow Submarine. We'd have an ounce of cocaine on the bus, along with tons of Jack Daniels and Crown Royal, and more pilly poos than a pharmacy. And everybody wanted to hang out with us because it was a good time. We were having a lot of fun. We were burning the candle at both ends. We'd still get up. We'd go to the radio stations in the morning. We'd push the shows. We'd still do all our interviews. We were higher than sin back then. And for some reason, after a while, you grow up, and it's called discipline. And we found it. Maybe we found it late, but we found it, and that's what those are the rules and regulations now of going out in a rock and roll band. You just got to be careful with your intake at the end of the day. If you want the run to last a long time, you can't be getting high.
Right. Now, what was some of the things that drove that? I mean, when we, as the people on the outside looking at our favorite bands and now hearing about how things were, reading it in books or in interviews like this, what in the case of Enough's Enough, what was a driving factor in that? Was it because you wanted to make it, did it help you get it through, or was it just it's time to party?
We had doctors, rock stars, lawyers, everyone coming out to the shows. They wanted to be a part of the party, and they would bring the favors. And the party favors were whatever whatever they had in their back pocket.
Gotcha.
And we embraced that. And we're not the only band; we're just one of them. We were able to navigate pretty well, though, for a band that had pharmacies delivered to us every single place we played, and that was our reputation. It precedes us. And I think at the end of the day, after so long, after so many problems, after losing band members, you start realizing that, man, it's just not going to go. We aren't going to make the fourth quarter unless we really watch our intake, and that's what we did. And we got better and better about it. Now, it's a fine-tuned, well-oiled machine. I got Corey Stoffrig. He's been with me almost 20 years playing. And the guy's got it together, and he's had some medical issues too, and he's turned his life around. He's eating well, and he's not drinking. He's straight and focused on an arrow, and he loves plugging his guitar in and playing every single night. And I got Jason Camino playing with us. Jason used to be the guitar player in Nelson. He's a veteran. He knows exactly what he's doing. Plug that Les Paul in, be straight and focus. He has a couple little Bush beers, and he's ready to go, and he's just looking for trim every single night. And my drummer, Joe Corsone, young guy, he had a band called Highwire. They're fabulous. He's a solid drummer, a young guy, 33 years old, shows up every single day. He just wants to play his songs and do a wonderful job and pay respect to the legacy of what Enough Snuff is all about. And it's a fine-tuned, well-oiled machine right now. And there's a reason why, because we've been doing this for quite a long time. And at the end of the day, we just want to leave the audience wanting more.
Yeah. Now, you had mentioned that also on that cruise is going to be Faster Pussycat. Have you had a chance to hang out with those cats much?
I toured with those guys for years. Timmy and myself, we've been brothers for the longest time. 35 years we go back. That's a great band to go out and tour with live because they know exactly what they're doing. They got a wonderful catalog of material, and it's a nice package for the fans. If you want to come out and party and have a good time, those are the kind of bands you want to go see live in concert. And no tapes, no sequencers, no guys backstage. It's just a real rock band just bashing out those songs, and they show up every single night and they're ready to go. And I've always had fun with them. Tammy loves me because I buy him presents when we're on the road. We're out in Florida, and I'm buying him purses and jewelry. And he certainly loves gifts like most musicians do. But there's other bands that we've been touring with around, and we've done a wonderful job navigating the world with those other bands. In the last few years, we've done some pretty big tours, and all of them seem to be very well attended. And this next one right here with Glenn Hughes and Bad Marriage and Enough Snuff will be no different, guys. We're playing nice theaters, 1,000-seat places. The fans are coming out. They want to see the shows. And I think it's going to be a really good rock and roll party, having that consolidation of a bunch of bands together that people know and songs that people know as well. And we'll be focusing on not only the early Enough Snuff stuff, but throughout our catalog. And we'll even throw some Beatles songs in the set every single night from our album, Hard Rock Night. People seem to love that record. And I'm proud to say that I think we're the only band that's ever recorded a whole Beatle record with permission from the big boys of songs from 1967 through 1970, but a reinterpretation, just a picture of the Beatles playing those songs through Marshall amplifiers and Mesa Boogie stuff. It's heavy, it's powerful, it's loud, and it's really a solid performance on those. Those songs aren't easy to play, guys. I got to be honest with you. People think Beatles stuff is real simple. I remember James Hetfield said that Beatles was nothing but pussy music, but I beg to differ. Songs are very well written, and if it wasn't for the Beatles, we wouldn't have Metallica or Enough's Enough.
Amen to that. Amen to that.
Much better than Metallica. Megadeth. I think Megadeth.
Yeah.
Megadeth any day. So Metallica is rock.
Yeah. Now, when you're doing those, have you heard of? I want to ask you, have you heard of the Proto Men?
I've heard the name. I don't know much about them.
Okay. They did a whole night of Queen music. It's live. If you dig, I'm eager to hear that album you did of the Beatles music, just as much as I was ready to listen to this Proto Men album, full of Queen music. They killed it. So I'm really eager to hear yours as well on that one.
I'll tell you, if you want to go see a good Queen band, go see Almost Queen.
Okay.
That's a great band to go see live. Those guys nail it every single night. They live Queen, and that's a great band. There's quite a few bands out there that are, I guess you would call them tribute bands that do a fine job. Music Box is great doing all the Genesis stuff too. If you look around, you'll find some great bands out there that really bring it home every single
That
night.
wasn't me.
And I say everybody get a chance to. If you can't see your favorite band, go see the tribute band.
Oh yeah.
Maybe there'll be enough Snuff tribute band one day as well.
I think it's something. I think the sound went down on the phone a little bit.
Yeah, go see all the bands you can. Go support your favorite artists, and if you can't see the real bands, Queen, go see Almost Queen. You can't see Guns N' Roses, go see GNR. They're all out there. The Music Box, like I said earlier, Music Box, the old Genesis cover band. Those guys do the Music Boxes do England by the Pound, and they do a fabulous job. They pull up there. They got 2 semis full of gear, and along with a big tour bus. Okay, there's somebody's doing something right out there.
Wow. So let me ask you this. It seems to me though that I enjoy like the Proto Men doing the Queen thing or you guys doing the Beatles thing a little more than I would say Australian Pink Floyd, which I think it's great, but it's just like the record. I'm like, it's almost too polished. Whereas when you're going out and doing the Beatles thing, and when the Proto Men did the Queen thing, it's got a little more life to it because you are dying to do this and you're just going to do it here and you're not sick of doing it. You know what I'm saying?
Well, you want to pay respect to your forebears. Those bands out there are doing it like the record because that's how most of the audience wants to hear those songs. That's how they know them. Yeah. The Enough's Enough it's its own entity, which we're an original band. It has 20 albums out, and we did the Beatle record just to pay respect to one of the greatest bands that we grew up to love. It was part of our fabric as kids, but we did a reinterpretation of those Beatles songs, and that's what made it a little bit different and turned it into us. That's all. There's still Beatles songs at the end of the day. It's just, like I said, it's our own rendition of those Beatles songs. Those other cover bands you mentioned, the Pink Floyd one, and the Almost Queen and Proto, those are great bands. I'm sure that they are playing by the book. Okay, and most of the audience that's paying to see a ticket for those groups, they want to hear those songs like the record, so they're doing their job.
Yeah, and you're absolutely right. When they do that, they're doing it for a reason, and they do it like they do. And I have no qualms with that. All I'm saying is, personally, I would rather go see a from the heart performance, a tribute that night, like you guys did of the Beatles, and like they did of Queen. To me, just personally, for me, I feel that there's a little more passion there. I feel there's a little more dialogue between the crowd and the artist, because I'm like, you're Enough's Enough, guys. You are doing the Beatles. I get it, because I feel that when I hear your music, I feel that Beatles thing. Like after so many years, I started hearing the Beatles now and again in Kiss. The more I listened to it, and knowing that they were big Beatles fans. So that's all I'm saying. Those have their place, and it's great. And people get to go and see that and hear the music and experience that music in a big theatrical way.
Yeah,
it's just, for me, I like the rawness of coming from the heart, and that's it.
Yeah, well, it's a fresh interpretation is always embraced. I love to see my favorite bands go out there and do a cover of one of their favorite bands. I seen Cheap Trick recently. They did Magical Mystery Tour. They opened the set with that, and it was incredible. And Metallica doing Stone Cold Crazy. You can't go wrong right there. It's brilliant, Right. So there's so many bands that have covered certain bands that they embraced, that was a part of their fabric growing up as kids. And I think that's real special out there. And I think the fans like it too as well. And it's a song, and it's usually songs that we all recognize out there that have been part of the playbook, that have been on radio and TV for years. And it's just nice to go out and see your favorite band play a song from one of your favorite artists.
Well, and I want to thank you for your cover of Tears of a Clown, because I immediately passed that on to my band, and I'm like, we're doing this.
Yeah,
Haven't
the old
heard it yet.
Smokey Robinson and Stevie Wonder wrote that one years ago. And our version was a little heavier, of course, more like AC/DC take of it. But listen, I love that track. I always have. I've always loved Smokey Robinson's Beautiful Pipes. I didn't know for years that Stevie Wonder was a writer on that song as well.
I didn't know that either.
And I grew up with Stevie Wonder. The songs in the Key of Life, one of my favorite records from the early days.
Yeah. Yeah, I delivered newspapers to that. I was
of course
delivering my newspapers, listening to Sir Duke. I'm like, got my little transistor radio on my bike and slinging papers. I was like, man, I loved that song.
Yeah, I always loved all the Stevie Wonder stuff. I liked. I grew up listening to that. And Sly and the Family Stone was another big band that we all loved as well.
Yep.
Those songs are timeless, and they just bring you back to when you were a kid. And it's just it's fabulous to hear those songs reinterpreted by other artists as well.
Yeah. Tell me a little bit about because I don't care about focusing on this song for a minute, because Tears of a Clown, when you got into it and you're ready to record it, whose decision was it who brought that idea?
It's just Donnie and I were talking about cover songs to do, and that was one that was brought up, and we had called a studio on the south side of Chicago, and they said that they were just getting ready to close up shop, and to call them the next day and said, oh, we wanted to come in there right now and record. And they said, oh, well, as a matter of fact, if you wanted to come right now, we just got done tweaking the drums. Come on over and let's get some sounds and get ready for tomorrow. So we had a friend of ours, officer, his name was Bob Erft. He was a Blue Island police officer. And we told him we had no money to record. We needed capital. And he came back and gave us $500. That started the recording for Nuff Snuff on that record. And that was one of the first. We recorded Catholic Girls Day by Day and Tears of a Clown in the same night.
Wow.
And, that really gave us a spark. Then we took that demo tape and gave it to a radio station here in Chicago, WVVX, and a guy named John Gorney started playing the song for us, and that really helped us gain an audience. We started getting some shows from that.
How was now when the meter of that song, is that the same as the original? I haven't put them side by side yet.
No, we just bashed it out. We knew the song, we knew the lyrics, and the melody line of it. We just wanted to make sure the chords were right, and it was our own interpretation. If you listen to it,
right,
it's nothing like the original, but you could tell by the chorus it's the same because it's got the boom, 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 boo, doo, 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 doo. It's got the little riff in there, and the melody line's pretty much the same as it was on the original recording.
Yeah, yeah. That's kind of what I liked about it. And then I like the fact that you guys even though it is what you're describing it as, it's not too fast. That's the other thing.
We wanted to make sure there was a nice little groove to it because you don't want to pass up the melody line or the lyrics or the storytelling of it. So we had to watch our pocket. We made sure that we did it in a good key and with the right tempo.
Yeah, I can totally feel that. That's for sure. I love that. Cause I was like, when I wrote a note to my band, I'm like, do you guys want to speed this up a little bit? Or does it feel right? And my drummer's like, feels good the way it is. Leave it.
Yeah, just steal our version.
Yes, that's what I'm gonna do. And I will tell them from where it came. I love doing that while I'm at my gigs. I don't go on and on about songs. I try not to do that, especially if they're covers, like that. But I'll throw a couple of words out as as we start. I don't have a problem with that.
And I thank you.
Like a good DJ, right? You
That's
talk
it.
As the music's playing, don't talk and then play the music.
Don't bore us. Get to the chorus.
Yes. Oh, if someday, Chip, I can find this video again of this band that covered Styx, I will send it to you. You might just throw up in your mouth a little bit after you see it.
You might faint. You
might, because this guy went on for like 6 minutes before they ever started playing music.
I love the Styx guys. I love them with Dennis DeYoung. I love them with Glenn Burtnick singing. I think the band now is fabulous. They're out there playing shows. JY, great friend of mine, playing a bunch. He covered a couple of Nuff Snuff songs on his solo record. Good guys right there. I always love Styx, and the big part of our fabric here in the Midwest.
I totally forgot about that. You're absolutely right. I love that record.
Didn't even know it
That
existed.
so good, so good. Did you have one more question, Blake?
No, I don't.
Okay, that's cool. What I wanted to, what I also wanted to do, if you don't mind, how did you get hooked up with the Midnight Devils? I know that there we played up at Rock and Skull. I played up there in 17 and 18, and that's where we kind of I bumped into you guys and the Midnight Devils. And then the next thing I know, you're producing this.
Yeah, I knew the Midnight Devils. I knew Jimmy Mess when he played in the band called Pretty Boy Floyd. We did a couple of shows together, and then they came to me and said, "Hey, would you be interested in producing our record?" And I said, "Yeah." And they came in, and they were semi-prepared. They didn't give me any demo tapes. I didn't hear anything at all. They just show up at my studio, and they proceeded to bash out 12 songs in 2 days.
Wow.
And I think they did a fabulous job. Real nice guys to work with. Love Sam, the singer, Sniper, solid guitar player, like a little baby Eddie Van Halen guy. And they bashed out those songs, and we probably did the whole record in about a week. And then I took it to Chris Steinmetz over in the north side of Chicago. You know, we tracked it here in Blue Island at my studio with Rob Posen, who our producer, who does a lot of stuff with punk rock too as well. And then we took the record and had Chris mix it. Chris does a lot of stuff for. He worked with White Lion and Kiss. He did the Revenge record.
Oh, wow.
Worked with Ozzy Osbourne. So I knew we were putting the record in good hands, and he mixed that record up. Took him about 10 days, and there they go. They had a fabulous record, and then we took them out on tour with us. We went through Europe and England, did 20 shows, and they really helped that band a lot. And they met a lot of fans, and they're moving up. They're signed with Pavement Records here in Chicago.
Yeah.
And it's a really good label, and I think they've really made some inroads and some great strides. And now I think they're back in the studio recording their next record.
Yeah.
That's a band to look out for. You want to go see a band on a live show that really brings every night, go check out those guys. They're really a lot of fun, and it's a strong band to go see live, that's for sure.
It is. They're a lot of fun. They always play to the crowd. They know what it's like. They know what they're doing and why they're doing it. It's totally that old school build where they just get out there. They're making the music and they're killing it. And I'm glad that you mentioned about the punk aspect as well with the production, because that's what I say. I'm like, they're that cool thing between hair metal and punk. It's really, it's got a great edge, and I love it. It's a lot of fun.
Hair metal punk band. That's what they are.
Yeah.
Yeah, when I was producing the record and they came in here, everything was live, by the way, guys. They just bashed it out live. I have down in the basement of my pad, I have a drum kit, and I just run a snake up to the first floor. So we have 2-inch tape, and we also have a 1/4-inch and 1/2-inch. So we were able to really record those songs, the basic tracks, bash them out analog wise. And then from there, then we took it and went to the digital format. And I was thinking when I was making the record and producing it, I kept thinking Sex Pistols, never mind the Bullocks. I didn't capture that, but that was a record that I thought was a fabulous album. And that's what I was looking for that band, songs that had, they were aggressive, but yet still melodic.
Yeah. And I think, and the beautiful thing about the Midnight Devils is that they're just out. It's out for the people. So all of these songs are kind of out for the people. It's not so much like the Sex Pistols that were like, screw everybody. So look at that cool couch. So, but yeah, Sam is the real deal. Those guys are just, and Jimmy's a mess. He's awesome. He's just
we need a new couch.
Yeah. His last name says everything, guys. Jimmy Mess.
I just was, it was funny when I just, oh yeah, that's his name. That's another funny thing you mentioned. I wanted to mention this a little earlier too. We mentioned Queen, and I cannot wait to be face to face. We're going to talk about that some more. That still blows me away. But Queen in 1984 arrived on the UK charts with Radio Gaga in 1984. Then also in this day in what the heck was it? It was 1976. ABBA's Mamma Mia knocked Bohemian Rhapsody off the #1 spot on the UK charts, where it had been for 9 weeks. And what's odd and what's coincidental about that? It's in the lyrics, right? Mamma Mia knocked it off the #1 spot, but in Bohemian Rhapsody, they say, Mamma Mia, Mamma Mia.
Of course.
You're like, hey, wait a minute.
A big ABBA fan, by the way, too. They have that now, the Avatar that's out there, making $1.7 million a week. And that don't even show up there. It's just all Avatar. And that might be the wave of the future, where you're seeing these bands that are going away in the next 5 years or so. You want to see those bands live in concert. Avatar might be the way to go, guys.
I think it is, because, thank you for mentioning that, Chip, because we're the first ones, right? We're the first ones where rock and roll, it started before I was born. I have to face that fact, right? I'm not, the end all be all in that time zone. However, I was there early on enough in it that a lot of those bands could still be, will still be, are still be going, but some shouldn't. And I think that's a good way to do that. If those people really want, I say those people, if people who can't get enough of it, if they've seen it then and they still want to see it now, but don't want to be disappointed, that's a great way to do it. And go enjoy your life. You know what I mean?
Well, you can show the bands, as they used to be. That's the special thing.
Right.
Where they're youthful and full of piss and vinegar. And that's when they were at the top of their game. So Avatar has a lot of things to offer there. The music's always going to be there. We're always going to be able to embrace that and love it. But to see the bands playing them live, even if it's Avatar, there's an excitement that you can get to that. To see a Zeppelin and Avatar, fantastic, or Queen, because those bands aren't going to last much longer. They gave us 40, 50 years of happiness. Yeah. What's the next way to see them live? You can go back and see the live shows, but man, Avatar will sound good. It'll look good. And there's some exciting aspects to it. Let's see what happens with the Kiss one. That's going to be exciting. And that'll show you how, what's going to happen in the future.
Yeah. And I still hope that there's room for for the younger bands that are coming up, for them to still do the live thing, that will still embrace that instead of just corporately going off and watching a video.
Well, we got some great bands that are out there right now. Greta Van Fleet, Rival Sons, Dirty Honey, Vintage Trouble, The Struts. I like the Lemon Twigs. I think they're fabulous. There's a lot of newer bands that are coming up there, and they're really exciting out there. And I play them on my radio station all the time. I'm on Monsters of Rock every single day.
Yeah,
a lot of people are hearing these newer bands, and they're carrying the flag. Dirty Honey, and really good live band to see.
Yes,
that's the wave of the future right there. Okay, check out the Struts. You get a chance to see the Struts live. Luke Strutt, great frontman, very Freddie Mercury-esque. There's a lot of good stuff out there and these bands all have influences. Greta Van Fleet, they sound like a lot like Zeppelin. That's good. There's not many bands that can say that. So embrace. I say embrace what's out there and support it. And we're going to we have a nice music business happening moving forward with a lot of great bands, and it's up to us to keep that the American flag and the British flag flowing in the air and carrying that music to the houses and the people around the country. We're not running out of music, folks. There's some really good bands out there. You just got to find them, and you have to support them.
Well, and again, thank God for tours like this that are happening with you and Glenn Hughes, where you're bringing bands like Bad Marriage. I think Scorpions recently were on tour, and they took Thunder Mother with them. And what a great freaking band that is. All women. Scorpions. Plush is another one that's all women. That's a newer band that's doing a great job.
Yep.
Fair Warning is a great 3-piece female band.
Killer.
I
just seen Lizzie Hale giving a guitar to the girl in Fair Warning. The Warning, they're called. And
The warning. I'm sorry.
yeah,
The warning. Yes.
and they're all showing respect and looking out for the future. I think that's great when the veterans are out there helping out the rookies. At the
Yeah.
end of the day, that goes a long way. I know it did for us in the early days when we hung out with bands like Cheap Trick, and it gave us a spark. And nothing's changed right there. It's always important to pay respect to your forebears.
Absolutely. Standing on the shoulders of giants, as Toby Jepson says, you know, just to be able to move on with some of those. I wish we could, that's my big thing, is I wish there was an easier, better way to get bands over here from the UK and for bands here to be able to easily go over there. You know,
Well,
that's
there's a way to do it, but it's got to be done. It's very challenging because it's very expensive for bands from the UK to
right.
come over here because they have to have a work permits and licensing and
Yes.
then of course transportation and getting the right gear to play the shows. And the best way to do it for those UK bands is the same way American bands have to do it in the UK. You got to either buy onto a tour or find someone who's out there that'll take a chance that likes your music and they're willing to put you on to support them.
Yeah.
That's the way to do it. And listen, it's always been challenging for all the bands out there, but the good ones find a way.
Right. Right. You're absolutely right. And that's like Hell's Addiction is another band that I featured here. We had their guitar player here, and I said, you know, it'd be great if you guys could come over here and do this tour. Wayward Sons, have Hell's Addiction, have Enough's Enough, have the Midnight Devils, and then boom, just, you know, put it together and have it happen.
Well, some of the promoters out there are starting to do that. There's a guy, Silverback, touring over in Australia, and he's bringing American bands and European bands together and doing big festivals there. So there's a couple of guys that are grabbing onto that template, and it seems to work for them. So hopefully it'll catch on, and other people around the country will grab that too, because there's so much good music out there. It's just a matter of finding a place for these guys to play. Yeah.
Yeah. I can't remember the name of the one that I'm really into. It's called Electric. Oh shit. We do the Black Keys here. You know, we love doing that. Electric Mary is the name of the other band.
Yeah.
And how about this super group kind of thing they put together called Elegant Weapons? Crying out loud. There's so much music out there.
Well, that's the thing with music out there is we're at a time right now where there's too much product, not enough demand.
Right.
It makes it very difficult. So, you know, it's up to these bands to find a light at the end of the tunnel and be able to go out and play these shows. And boy, it's tough times out there, but also exciting.
Now, yeah, in mentioning Elegant Weapons, do you have folks that you're reaching out to or who are reaching out to you that are like, let's put something together and let's do this?
Oh yeah, we're doing it right now in the Bad Marriage Glenn Hughes tour. And then we go over to Europe. We're taking out the Zach Waters band, a band from Sacramento, California, fabulous group, a three-piece band, and they're going to be supporting us on the whole European run. So yeah, there's bands out there that do that, and they share the stage, and they share a back line, and share transportation. And that's the way to do it. There's a little discipline that happens in all these gigs and all these tours. And you just got to find that key that opens the lock up where we can go out there and do it together. But yeah, I see a lot of bands are doing it. A lot of buy-on tours are happening too right now, where bands spend the money to go out and buy onto the tour because you get a chance to play for an audience every single night. That means a lot. You can't go to these places and play for 20, 30 people. That's you're confusing motion with progress. You got to try to find a tour that's going to help you where you're going to reach an audience. You can sell your merchandise, leave an indelible mark in every single town. And maybe if you do a good job, those promoters and agents will call you back for round two.
Mm-hmm. Now, and let's get back to that same question as far as like, yes, getting bands together and doing that. But what about, have you ever talked to anybody about doing a super group kind of a thing where it would be Chip Zanoff and this guy and this guy and this guy? Have you?
Well, sure. I just did something like that recently with Anne Margaret. She did a record on Cleopatra. Anne Margaret's called Born to Be Wild, and me, Joe Perry, Robin Ford, Pete Townsend from the Who, the Stray Cats, we all played on the record with her. So that was kind of a cool thing that we just did. And I just did the London Choir Boys record. They're called the Choir Boys now. I'm playing on that record, and Joe Elliott's on there, along with Anger Anderson and Buck Cherry. There's a lot of good players on there. Wow. So yeah, there's some groups that we get together and we make some music together and do some records. But as far as a brand new band with a super group, I've been asked to do that. I got my hands full with Enough's Enough.
Right. Yeah. And I just wonder, because I get concerned that I know that in my world, there's a market for that. When it comes to elegant weapons, I'm like, I'm buying it. Yeah. It's good. Black Swan, same thing. You know, it's so good. So good. That
Black Country Communion, same kind of thing. It's all-star band, all great players right there.
Right.
And the Hollywood Vampires, same thing. Dead Daisies, same thing. There's those bands out there that do that, and it seems to work for them.
Yeah. Yeah, and I see John Corabi's back.
It's nice to see him.
Glenn Hughes, now John Corabi again. Good guy.
Yeah, wonderful singer, and I think the band is running on all cylinders right now. We just did a nice tour with those cats, and those are great shows, playing nothing but theaters, sold out every single night. Now we've had some nice little runs with some of these super groups, and you'll I think in the future you'll see more of those.
Do you play a lot? Let's move into. We'll let you get going here. We got a few minutes left, but I want to make sure that we plug the radio show. So let's talk about that a little bit. Are you playing Bad Marriage on your radio show?
Yeah, we play everything on our radio show. It's 95,000 songs. It's 24/7, 365 days a year, A through Z, the whole alphabet of hard rock and heavy metal. And our whole show on the Monster Rock is curated by rock stars. So Ryan Roxy from Alice Cooper has his show. Skid Row and Rachel Bolan has a show that's fantastic. Doro Pesch is on there. Wow. Blaze Bailey from Iron Maiden's got his own show. Of course, there's a lot of Chuck's not on there. No, I haven't seen Chuck Billy. Although we play a Testament all the time, because I love Chuck Billy. Big pot smoker, by the way. I hung out with him at the Riot Fest in Chicago, and we smoked 10 joints in 5 minutes. Guy was incredible. He loved it. I had no idea he loves Cheech and Chong. But my radio program, guys, runs every single day. All you got to do is go to monstersofrock.com. You get the channel. It's just like Sirius XM. We have 13 million subscribers, and it's growing every single day exponentially. And it's a great station just to celebrate the greatest hard rock and heavy metal imaginable. And most terrestrial radio plays the same songs over and over and over. Right. We have 95,000 songs, as I said earlier, and that we pick from, and it's basically picked by the fans. Okay, they want what they want to hear. We play, and it's commercial free.
Wow, fantastic! Like, so do you guys play? I'm just gonna throw it out there. Do you guys play Elegant Weapons on there?
Maybe my station does, but on my program, I know I haven't been playing that. I've been focusing it on bands like Greta Van Fleet and Rival Sons and Dirty Honey and the Struts, and along with, of course, Queen and Mott the Hoople and Sweet and Guns N' Roses and Cheap Trick, Metallica, Megadeth. It's a plethora of great bands. Deep Purple's in the set, of course, every single night for us. It's just all great bands that have sold millions and millions of records. Yeah.
That's fantastic. Well, I'm very happy for you on that end, and that you've got an outlet for that where you can, and I thank you for having an outlet where you can play some new music too, and then marry it in a good marriage with the classics that have driven it. You know, it's the reason. This is the reason that this still exists. You know,
that's why I do it. I love getting the music out there. It's very important, and at the end of the day, it's basically a station that's, as I said earlier, curated by all the rock stars. So that makes it special. Every single day, you got another rock star on there promoting all these different bands out there, doing interviews. Rudy Sarzo's show is fabulous. He's on every Sunday. And he has all kinds of interviews and big rock stars he puts on his show too as well. And he plays some great songs. And then at the end of the day, it's what it's all about, keeping the music that's out there and letting people celebrate what it's all about at the end of the day. First time you got laid, first time you got high, guess what? I got you covered on my program. Guys, I appreciate you guys taking time out of your busy schedule to talk to me. I'm going back into the studio with my engineer. I'll catch you up on the tour with Glenn
Yeah.
Hughes, Enough Snuff and Bad Marriage. And hopefully we come through your town. We'll hang out for a little while.
Yes, those guys will be, if you're in the St. Louis area or just across the river, they're going to be at the Wildy Theater next Wednesday night, which means that Hammer Away will hopefully, I'm going to do a little switch and I'll probably show up on Tuesday night, on Tuesday afternoon. So be looking for that because I'll be over with Chip and the guys over there in Illinois. So maybe we'll even do a little live something that'll be on Facebook. I may pull that up and maybe we'll do something from there. So
thanks, guys. I appreciate you talking to me. It's a very, very, very nice conversation. I wish everybody well in 2024. May the best thing that happened to us last year be the worst thing that happens to us this year.
Well,
see you guys. Man. Thanks, guys.
Hang on tight, and I'll talk to you backstage. I'll just hang tight, and I'll be right there. All right, you guys, take care. Everybody, thank you for being here, and then we look forward to hearing from you guys more in the future. Next week, hopefully, we'll have Toby Jepson on. And thanks again, Chip. I'll put this up, and we will be heading out doing it this way.